It always takes a lot of strength, courage, and motivation to keep fighting for the right cause, especially when the war is so brutal and lasts for such a long time, like in Ukraine. Yet many prominent international volunteers keep fighting and motivating others since the very first days. Brandon Mitchell, former military from Canada, spent years saving lives and helping wounded Ukrainian defenders and civilians. Despite his own injury received at the front line, he keeps supporting his comrades and brings the truth about Ukraine to the international community.
My name is Brandon Mitchell. I come from Canada. I served in Hospitala's Medical Battalion for 2 years, Donbass, Zaporizhia, Kherson, and I've worked over a year in Swedish medical aid with Quartermaster for Ukraine, for the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Currently in Kiev, studying in an intensive language school.
Do you learn Ukrainian language?
Я навчаюся українською мовою. Так, будемо говорити українською, але я думаю, вони не розуміють.
Being a volunteer in Ukraine in 2025, how different is it from 2022?
We have a saying in English, you can sort the wheat from the chaff. The cream rises to the top. And I don't mean to be egoistic, but there was a lot of goodwill that died off in 22, 23, more. And not as much as dramatically, but a lot of our support bases that we have, because everything rolls downhill to the zero line. So everybody essentially has to pander. If you're an infantry soldier, you have to pander to your support units, to volunteers, to European organizations or donors. I would say myself and everybody else that I know that's still consistent, they have a solid support base. They can have hard times, good times, and even the donors themselves, they've decided they're going to do what they're going to do, and very, very rarely do they switch their path that they've chosen. So it's less than it was, but it's dependable. I'm astonished by people who choose to support us, and I've come to learn my own things. It's I don't see it ending, regardless how long the war comes. I can't see the support ending.
Did you discover anything new about yourself since 2022?
I'm 39 years old now. I came here when I just turned 35. Yeah, I still have. It's basically a culmination of everything I learned in life. But I learned things that I suspected about myself, that I was loyal, that I would help my friends. And sadly, the way our Western societies are made, they're made to separate us. They're made that we don't need other people, that we don't need a community, that we never really have a hard day. But I never believed in this. I never subscribed to this. I believed that we should help an old lady cross the street. I grew up with my grandparents. That you should know who your neighbors are. You should know their names. You should know a bit about their health condition. You should know if an old lady who is a widow, if her children live in another city, you should probably know that about your neighbors. Um, uh, Generally in Ukraine, people still have these values. They still have these values. This was always something very strong growing into me, but in Western society, sadly to say, it's not so common anymore.
Besides this, what attracts you in helping Ukrainians and in Ukraine in general?
Well, I suppose it's a relationship. It's a very intimate relationship. I could tell you many things about Ukraine that I don't like, but I'm still here. I guess I love her, and A wise man once said, "A woman needs to be understood. A man needs to be needed." And and here I'm needed. Um, there is a genuine need. Um, there's a genuine want for anybody, not just a foreign volunteer, but anybody who can really do something. It's needed. It's wanted. It's I wake up every day with purpose.
You know what they say, war changes our personalities over time. Do you think you changed as well, especially after, when you ran over a mine?
Mm, well, I'll tell you the truth. I'm much more direct. Um, Anybody in my day to day, week to week circle, um, whether it be a volunteer or somebody in the armed forces, we quite often, if we message each other, we don't say hello. We say, "Can you help with this? Do you have this? I need this." And I blew up in a minefield. Glass went directly through my ear, my tympanic membrane, and lodged in my medulla. Um, I spent 5 to 6 weeks in hospital. My final MR was only in December last year, and there's a few things that have been recorded that are different. Sometimes I struggle with emotion. I can be angry, but thank God I've never acted on that anger or those thoughts to others because there could be consequences. They might deserve it though. Um, you have to be righteous if you do this work. Um, but sometimes I can be very emotional and I can be moved to tears. And it's not sadness. It's it's pride over my friends, particularly in Hospitallers Battalion, the people who joined in 22 that are still alive. Most are, or some have been pushed out by the VLK, the Army Medical Commission. But when I think what all those people have accomplished, and it's over 4 years. Some of them are quite young. They Boys and girls have become men. Um, I I sometimes I'm moved to tears when I think of how proud I am of my friends. I have a very paternalistic feeling over them. I'm 39. A lot of them are still in their 20s. Um, yeah, I feel very paternalistic over them. But I'm quite moved emotionally where I wouldn't have been before. I am different that way, Andre. I'm very different.
Do you feel like it's easier to speak with Ukrainians or with soldiers, with veterans who went through the war, than with civilians from abroad, from other countries?
Um, yes, I think it's much easier. I served in the medical service, and we have a very different perspective than, say, the infantry, the pechota, the drone guys. Um, I don't I don't really gel with drone guys. I don't mean to say I don't gel with them, but just the ones that I know that are foreigners that we can relate on a same language level. Um, I would have more in common with an infantryman. Um, yeah, but when I talk to different people, particularly in the medical service, there's a feeling. There's a feeling of being a peer, regardless whether you're a felcher, a doctor, a paramedic, a nurse, casevac, medivac, stabilization. Um, there's just a feeling of um, almost absolute equality, um, where it's very hard to talk to. People have different perspectives. Somebody in Sweden who helps us a lot with millions of euros, he wanted to hear a cool story once, so um, I told him about a casualty I had that he stupidly caught the recoil of a 777, a 155 cannon in the face. And yeah, and he just, like a little boy, just squeezed up and he asked me about it. And I told him, well, we intubated him. And yeah, but one day I was having a bad day and I told him a bad story that's bad for me. And I would never say that on camera. And he was in tears. Just because I was in a bad mood, I wanted to stick it to him. And I told him something that happened in Avdiivka once. Um, yeah, you can't tell people about that stuff. You can't tell them. You know about it. You know about it. You've done your time in Donbass. You know what they're capable of. Hastomo, Bucha, Irpin. You, I've seen that on smaller scale in Lamontsky Regel when we liberated it in the first week. You can't tell people those details. You just can't.
On the other hand, maybe it's necessary to speak about those things.
Yeah, but then I'll ruin their cocktail parties, or if they're fundraising only for medical in London at an event, I'll ruin their event. And if I say the wrong thing or if I offend anyone, I lose my platform at that event because I have PTSD.
Speaking of your service in the medical battalion, is there a case that makes you feel proud that you would like to talk about?
My first month on rotation was in a hospital in Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, but you could literally turn your head and spit in Zaporizhia Oblast, and that is the first real hospital. And the next month, moved to work on a 300 point in Zaporizhia along Hulapuli direction. But in May 22, there was an assault. Um, First Tank Brigade, which you're familiar with, your family has roots in. The remnants of Azov, they came back from Mariupol. They fought again. Think about that. Um, think about that. Um, I remember one day we had a high number of heavy 300s. I remember, just as simple as this, we had to lay them all on the ground, and I was still pretty fresh. I've only had 1 month working in a surgery, like a sanitar. They were about to pull this guy in, and I didn't speak a word of Ukrainian, but they all understand. Stop! And there was something not right on his leg, and I could see a bubble, like a blob. The tourniquet was ineffective, and he probably had a slow bleed for over a half hour, a very slow bleed, which, judging by the size, was actually arterial. The tourniquet just wasn't tight enough, and I'm yelling to commanders to stop, and I just took that windlass and turned it one more time. Not that's not the protocol, is to use another one, but turned it one more time, and I wiped it out with my shirt, and I stopped the bleed. That's that's nothing compared to what I've done. But that was the first time that I ever. Uh, Medicine doesn't hold rank. I did a good thing. I'm proud that the Nachmed, the commander of 35 Brigade, trusted me over many months in Tahinka, which doesn't exist anymore because we got fobbed. Um, Directly across from Krinky, I worked in the Krinky operation on our side. That he eventually trusted me to be the head medic on the Humvee for a brief time, and I felt so proud that wow, I have NATO kit, but then I realized how crap it is, because you can't see out of it like a civilian Kazavak, and you hear the noise and the guns, and you feel very vulnerable. Like in an M113, there's no worse feeling. There's no worse feeling being in the back of that thing. Um, I'm just being honest. And then I realized the Humvee kind of sucked because they have such good suspension that the drivers just feel so comfortable up front to drive as fast no matter what you tell them. But in the back, it definitely bounces. I've had a few bruises on my head, maybe even concussion. But yeah, I was proud that I earned my way up. And at the same time, praying to God I didn't have a really heavy casualty I couldn't handle. But Kherson wasn't like that. If you made it across the river, you were going to live, and there's no medic or anesthesiologist or surgeon who, the only thing that was going to kill you from that point was sepsis or a really bad doctor. That thankfully I never met one. You understand.
How different are Ukrainian soldiers from Canadian and British soldiers?
I joined the army at 17, so I was a different man at the time. I would see things different, but a lot of us joined the army because it was cool, and we had a lot of fun, and we were idiots, and that's what you need. And everybody tells you the Canadian Army was telling us that we're the best army in the world, but then I transferred to the British Army, and they were telling us that we were the best army in the world, and I'm pretty sure Americans do that too. I've never been a fan of. I've never really got along with American officers, um, but in Ukraine, it's a necessity. People just feel they must do it. And we have some fantastic soldiers. We have some horrible soldiers, like any army in the real world. Um, but like it's very common. One of my best friends, he's been VLK'd out because of his back, but the only men in the family were him and his father. So they sat down with the women and they discussed who would join. But both of them couldn't because there needed to be a man left in the family. And the volunteers of 22, a lot of families sat down and did that either very quickly or over a month, or pretty much anybody who joined up within, I'd say, the first 3 months, they all had that decision. And um, it takes it's a real special man. It's a real special, and woman, a very special women. Um, no, I'd say are good are good people are better than an American soldier, a British soldier, a Canadian soldier, an Australian soldier, um, because they didn't join up for for a free get the GI Bill to get to go to college, or there's no reward out of this. It's just come back alive. That's it. A Ukrainian soldier who joined on his own free will is currently, I would class, as the highest form of humanity on planet Earth.
In such environment where you are now, what makes you keep going? What motivates you? And what makes you happy?
On Sunday, to answer your question, I went with friends of mine. I went to Lviv, and I went to an event, a memorial event, for a friend of ours that died. It was called Cheka Fest, and Irina Tsibuk joined Hospitallers Battalion about a week before me, and I knew her fairly well, but some people knew her really well, and she was very inspirational. She is posthumously awarded the Hero of Ukraine, our nation's highest honor. And what motivates me to stay, um, I share those ideals that she had. This festival was about Ukrainian literature, Ukrainian culture, music, dance, um, traditional music. And I looked around there, and I had a home. I study in Ukrainian school intensively now. I learn about Taras Shevchenko. I learn about Ukrainian literature. I learn about Slovo Budinok in Kharkiv, where the Russians allowed us to have great freedom before Holodomor. Um, and the NKVD would watch all our best people. They would let them gather. For 3 years, they did this. They allowed complete freedom in Ukraine culturally, and they just took notes. And then eventually, over months, they took them away. Um, I want to tell this story because people don't know this story, um, about the Kobzar, the Ukrainian Bible. Um, this is an art form. It's like a bard in Old England where he would tell stories and travel. And you can't learn this. You had to be an apprentice. And they would travel all over Ukraine. And it's a beautiful art form. I mean, this book is very depressing, very depressing. But the Soviets organized in Kharkiv a Kobzar festival, and they came from all over the country. Bandurists. I know Marina Krut, who is probably the best bandurist. That's a 53-string instrument. Russia has, what's the balaklaya? Three strings? A three-string guitar? Really? Are you joking? Um, uh, they had this festival for the bandurists and the kobzari, and anybody who went was executed. They the people who stayed in Ivano-Frankivsk, in, I'm telling you your own history, you know this. Those people survived, and they kept the art form alive till what, the 1990s, so it could come back. Um, these younger people than me at this festival, some of them older, but I'm 39, these people that I joined, they have a right to exist. They have a right to have children, grandchildren. And I get to be around the coolest people. All my friends are rock stars to me. I know some rock stars. I'm friends with Marina Krut, for example. DK Energetica, he writes me on Instagram. Well, he did before he got mobilized and he had to shave off his hair. Ukrainian artists will talk to you. It's not like, I don't know that Taylor Swift, we ain't got Taylor Swift. I wouldn't want to talk to her anyway. Um, I get to be around rock stars every day, whether it's a doctor, a machine gunner, a Sabir who paints our cars. To me, they're all rock stars. Yeah, that's. I guess I get to be a rock star too. It's pretty cool. Starsky and the. What will we name your band someday? Starsky and the.
Unicorn Squad.
Oh, I don't think Ukraine's that liberal yet. We're not ready for that. Maybe in another 20 years.
I know that there's still a long way to go, but still, let's imagine that the war is finished and Russia collapsed, Ukraine won the war. What will you do immediately after learning that the war is finished?
I'd like to help have my mark on a small mark on improving the Medicina Sluzhba, the medical service of the armed forces of Ukraine. I could either back in the army till an old man, or as a civilian, I could have a part in that. But yeah, as soon as the war's done, I need to start studying again with an open, fresh mind.
Why is it important to support Ukraine nowadays? Why is it important not just for Ukraine, but internationally, in your personal opinion?
Now we're getting on Jake Bro level stuff, like the big picture, him and Georgie's. Um, I don't have a right to talk about that like other people, but we're in a position to deal one lethal blow to them, as was proven recently. Uh, even that operation in Russia, even if the numbers are divided by half, the effectiveness, it was one hell of a blow. We are very capable. We have knowledge that if NATO were to fight now, they would have to learn war. It would be very costly in the first 6 months, and we don't want that. We don't want that. We don't. Ukrainians don't want other countries in this war. I mean, sometimes we joke, yeah, it wouldn't be bad if the Poles had come, but yeah, that would be nice. Um, but we don't want that. Nobody in Ukraine wants this war to escalate. We want to deal with it here. Um, Yeah, it's very important to support us. It's very important. Uh, I must acknowledge the Swedish government who gives us the Archer, and this I know for a fact. Sweden and Denmark, all the equipment allocations they gave us were their best. It was not their war stocks, which is the case. Many countries are cleaning out their old arsenal and rebuilding new. That is a fact.
What makes you confident that Ukraine is going to win this war?
If Europe, please God, America, keep supporting us, they're also supporting us more intelligently. Uh, I don't hold secrets like General Budonov, but I'm not prepared to talk about them online. Um, the way the military aid is being distributed now is infinitely better than 22, 23. And those relations, um, I see things happening better. It's just a shame we didn't have this in 22. But I don't think any war ever was. Sometimes, um, God, I hate this, but to quote Winston Churchill, um, England often only wins one battle, the last. I don't think we could actually lose as such, but that's up to Kiev, and that's up to Washington, to Paris, to Berlin, to Stockholm, to London. Um, it's up to a lot of people. It's not on me. But that's no excuse for me to not get up every day and do the best I can.
Brandon Mitchell and people like him serve as an inspiration to the best people of our planet, because they always do the best they can. And they also keep reminding us that freedom is not free. It is not granted, but requires a lot of work and sacrifice. But in the end, it's definitely worth it. My name is Operator Starsky. Thanks for watching.